All right, welcome to my introduction. So you can see we're in the classroom. At the end of this, I'll give you a quick walking tour of my room and maybe the area right outside of it. But I want to go over the syllabus real quick. I just want to highlight what I feel like are the most important parts or the parts that might be the newest to you. So again, welcome to Pre-AP Geometry with Statistics. You can see it on my smartboard behind me. My name is Mr. Maciag, and I will be teaching you this year in our Pre-AP Geometry class. So in our syllabus grading policy, I introduced what Pre-AP Geometry is, and I linked to the Pre-AP website about it. So Pre-AP is the curriculum that College Board developed to prepare students to take AP classes. In math, that means we're preparing you for AP Calculus and AP Statistics. But the great thing about Pre-AP is that what we do in geometry also prepares you for all of your other AP courses. So we have these big things called shared principles, and I'm kind of jumping around the document, but those shared principles are in all Pre-AP classes. So that means if you have me for Pre-AP Geometry, and then you have Mackenzie for Pre-AP Freshman Literature, we will be talking about the same shared principles. And those four shared principles are close observation and analysis. All right, so in geometry, we'll be looking at shapes, we'll be looking at statistics, closely observing it, and trying to analyze the data we get. Evidence-based writing. In geometry, as in Algebra 1, you had to explain your answers. You had to write. It had to be based on the math that you did. I want you to reference the problem. I want you to reference the geometry figure. We'll get practice with this. We do it a lot in geometry. Geometry is the math class with the most writing in it. The next shared principle is higher order questioning. I will not just ask you what the answer is. I will ask you what could have changed in the problem and how would that have changed your answer. I'll ask you about how could we transfer this knowledge into a different scenario. I'll ask you real world problems and labs, all of these higher order questioning. Basically, I want to make sure you understand it at a deep level. And the last shared principle that you'll have in all your pre-AP classes is academic conversation. So in this class, it's going to be a little bit more difficult virtually, but you will be talking to each other. You will be having discussions about the things we're observing. We will be following a format that I will introduce to you over the first couple weeks about how to make sure that we are talking to each other, that it's academic, we're using vocab, and that it's actually causing you to learn stuff. Now, specifically for Pre-AP Geometry, we have these three areas of focus. These three things are essential learnings throughout the entire course. So we have 4 units in this class, but these areas of focus will be in each unit. I'll cover these quickly. There's greater authenticity of applications and modeling. So basically, real-world math. We're going to be doing stuff that you would do in the real world. We'll see how we can use statistics and geometry with everyday problems, with maybe a little bit more difficult problems that you might not see every day, but you might come across in your life. The second area of focus is engagement in mathematical argumentation. So this goes along with academic conversation, but a big thing in geometry is something called proof. You're going to prove what you say. And we will follow certain formats, but we are just going to learn how to mathematically argue with each other. That's not to say just bicker or just get mad at each other. Argue is an art form, argumentation, that does follow certain formats. And the last area of focus for geometry will be connections among multiple representations. You've practiced this in algebra, right? You took a table and you made a graph out of it. You took a table and you wrote an equation for it. In geometry, we'll be going back and forth between the description of a shape and the shape itself. We'll be talking about transformations of shapes and how we can use different representations of that. All of these areas of focus will be in each unit. All right, the next part of the syllabus I wanted to cover were our units. We're going to have 4 of them throughout the year. So that means 1 unit per card marking, which means 1 unit about every 10 weeks. The first one, measurement and data, that's going to be our statistics unit. So we all have experience with statistics already. That's mean, median, and mode, range. We've covered these things in other math classes and maybe in your science class. We're going to dive deeper at the high school level and talk about a lot more things like probability and how we can use statistics and probability to look at some data and make a claim from it. This unit is really going to make you feel like you can understand the news a lot better, and we'll talk about other applications of this unit. Unit 2, we're going to get into geometry. So we're going to start talking about line segments, intersecting lines, parallel lines. We're going to talk about triangles a lot. Unit 3, which would be the start of the second semester, so all the way in end of January, we're going to talk about measurement and congruent and similar figures. So that's going to be primarily about triangles again and how to figure out if two triangles are the same exact triangle. We have a lot of projects, hands-on activity for that. We might be back in school by then, depending on how everything goes, which would be a great unit to get back because I have a lot of fun activities that are hands-on for that. And our last unit, right towards the end of the year, will be measurement in 2 and 3 dimensions. That's when we start talking about area and volume, circles, spheres, pyramids, prisms, cones, cylinders, all those types of things that you might have already started talking about a little bit in your other math classes. Again, we'll talk about it at the high school level and learn about a lot more applications. As you'll be receiving work, I break work down into 3 categories, which are formative assessments, learning checkpoints and quizzes, and then summative assessments. So for me, formative assessments includes do nows, exit tickets, classwork. If I make you do like a worksheet at Desmos while we're doing virtual learning, that will be included in the formative assessments, and that's 25% of your grade. The second category, learning checkpoints and quizzes, you'll have about one of those every 2 weeks, and that's just our check-in in between learning and a test to see how are you learning it, do we need to go back over anything, do you need to come to me during seminar office hours to talk about that. So that's going to be 10% of your grade. Learning checkpoints are online through the pre-AP website. Quizzes I'll make, and I'll base it off of how we talk in class, how we do our lectures. I'm a teacher who really believes in transparency, so if you guys ask for it, I'll make practice quizzes. I really want you to feel prepared for it, and I don't want to surprise you with anything. So the last category is summative assessments. That's 65% of your grade. And that's tests, which I create, and then also what pre-AP calls performance tests. And there's about 2 or 3 of them every unit. So that's about maybe a test or performance task every month. All right. So as we work through that, we'll learn more about it. This is the updated part of the video. Unfortunately, I had to change the grading categories after I originally posted it. So you might have noticed a difference. We now only have 2 grading categories. This matches up with what Miss Petru did last year if you had her for pre-AP algebra, and this will what all your math classes will look like now at the U. So our first of 2 grading categories will be called formative assessments. That's 25%. That includes our everyday work that we do in order to learn. So that's do nows, exit tickets, homework, reflections, class activities, anything that we do in class and outside of class in order to learn. Late work will not be accepted. I might give you alternative assignments, maybe, to show that you're learning. But it is very important that you do the work when I assign it. Additionally, what we're going to put into this category now are quizzes and learning checkpoints. These are more serious formative assessments. They will be weighted more heavily. So your homework might be worth 10 points, but your quiz might be worth 50. So make sure that you are preparing for your quizzes and your learning checkpoints. Quizzes I will make, and they will be taken, at least for now, virtually online. And then learning checkpoints are created by pre-AP themselves, and we'll have to take them through the pre-AP classroom. We'll practice that before we take our first one. But both of these should be seen as you're still learning it, and these quizzes and learning checkpoints will give you feedback based on what you need to learn more before we take any tests or projects. And that's exactly what our next grading category is, summative assessments. So summative assessments are where you show off what you learned. These are your final evaluation of the concepts. Because they're final, they should be seen as final. So no grade revisions. The only way to the only way to take a test or a project if you are absent is to get that absence excused. Each unit will end in one test. And I will take the questions from the quizzes for the test. So nothing should be a surprise. I'm a teacher who tries to be transparent as possible. So the questions on the test should come from the quizzes. Performance tasks, you can see them as projects. You'll have 2 to 3 each unit. I believe Unit 1 has 3, and then Unit 2, 3, and 4 only have 2 of these performance tasks. They should be seen as projects. We might work on them as individuals. I might assign groups or let you choose groups for these. But in any case, we'll look at the performance task well in advance. We'll look at the rubric. We'll talk about what you need to learn so that way when you get your performance task, you can show off how much you've learned on those concepts. The rest of the syllabus you can look over. One more thing I did want to talk about with you is that the way I like to actually mark up your papers. So we will be doing a lot of different things, which I'll post another video about later, about classroom expectations. But when I grade work, I usually like to stick to a very simple grading system. So I'll either give you a check plus, a check minus, an X, or a 0. So I don't want to focus on points and argue over like 0.5 of a point. I'll just give you one of those 5 marks, and that means a certain level of points based on how many points the assignment is worth. So for me, check plus, that's achieving performance. That's you did everything I asked. You showed that you understood the concept or skill very well. If we were back in the classroom, you would be the person helping each other, helping your classmates out, maybe the person who would come up to the board to show off how to do it. That's achieving performance, check plus. And that's the best score you can get. Below that, approaching performance, you understand it. You might have made a couple of mistakes along the way. You might have showed that you're getting it, you're almost there, but you're not quite. That's a check. That's approaching performance, and that's about a B level, so a 8.5 out of 10. Below that is developing performance. You're on your way to learn it, but you're not done learning it yet. So that will be a check minus. That shows that you need to go back over that skill or concept a little bit more. You get a check minus on a big assignment. You should come to me during seminar so we can talk about it. Way below that is a X for must redo incomplete. So that means you gave up halfway during the assignment. It means you didn't look at the description and complete it based on my standards. That will go in on your paper. I'll write an X. It might go into gradebook as a 4 out of 10, or it might go in as a missing. So that way there's some more urgency for you to do it. The last way I'll score is a 0. I will give you zeros. If you don't turn it in, if you turn in something that's completely unrelated, or if you just did not look at any of the instructions and you just tried to do it the way you thought I wanted you to. So that's a must redo, no attempt. That will go in as a missing, and that will probably be where you, and maybe your parents have to have a nice little talk about why you skipped that assignment, like if it was a test or a project, a performance task, before we can do any next steps. So in the rest of the syllabus, there's the student responsibilities, which you should read. And then there's a nice little paragraph about makeup work and late work. So school-wide policy at our school is that if you do not show up virtually or in person, you must get that absence excused in order to do any of the work. So make sure, even though you're at home, if you're sick or if you had to go to an appointment or if you just can't make the virtual meeting, I'm still going to mark you absent, which means you still have to get that absence excused if you need to do any of the work from that day. So pretend like we're back in school. Absences need to be excused in order to do those work. Extra credit, I'm not a big fan of extra credit. I believe that my grade should reflect your understanding of it, and extra credit does not make sense in that scheme. So if I give you an A, that should mean you understand all the material perfectly. Extra credit changes that meaning, and I don't like that. I do like rewarding students for contributing to the classroom environment. So if you make a resource for us, if you make a video talking about a concept that a lot of your peers are struggling with, if you make a Kahoot or quizzes or something like that, I might give you a point or two of extra credit depending on what assignment it might match up with. But we'll talk about that more as we get into our class time. Next in the syllabus, there's something called Hints for Success. That's something that we developed as a math department. And it's just how to be a good student, listen and take notes. I will go over how I expect you to take notes, depending on what unit we're on in class. Try every problem I assign you. Give your best work every day. If you can't give your best work, talk to me, right? Let me know what's going on. It's harder virtually, but I do care what's going on, so please talk to me. Bring your assignments and material to class every day. That'll be very hard not to do since you're at home and your book and laptop or whatever you're working on should be there with you, unless you have to move around and go to different places. Ask questions when you need clarification. I will pause to ask for questions. Our classes will not be lecture-y. They will be you guys talking to each other, coming up with the concept. So if you have questions, ask them immediately. Stop me to ask a question. That is our bell at our school building. And then lastly, once we're done, you'll have homework about a half an hour between every class. Take that time to review what we learned that day, do the homework, or possibly do some asynchronous learning, basically watch a YouTube video and take some notes on it. Next up is just some quick math about how to figure out your semester grade or your card marking grade based on your categories, which we'll cover once we get closer to that time. So that's it for the syllabus. I also posted another document in Schoology about what tools we'll be using. So if you were with us last year, or if you were at another type of school that used Google Classroom last year, we will not be using Google Classroom this year at all. Instead, we'll be using Schoology. And you have to access that through Clever. Obviously you have because you're watching this video. Depending on what unit we're in, we'll either use Desmos or GeoGebra for some graphing capabilities. And I got into more detail in the document about which one we will use. At the time of making this video, we might be meeting on Google Meet our first couple of days. That might change over the next couple of days, so don't hold me to this. But Google Meet, you probably used it last year, just allows us to meet as a whole class. All 25 of us or 30 of us will be able to meet in Google Meet. We will have 2 textbooks. Our primary textbook is Springboard Digital, which we'll talk about how to access that at the start of Unit 2. Unit 1, no Springboard, only pre-AP documents, which I'll share with you as we need them. I might post homework occasionally from Springboard, which will just be like the textbook problems. Khan Academy, I'm sure you all have experience with that, but it's an online resource that pairs videos with interactive assignments that tell you if you're right or wrong right away. I will post homework through Khan Academy when I can. I will use YouTube to post my own videos like I am right now. I will use Quizzies or Quizzes, depending on how you say it, for classroom activities, for homework. I prefer Quizzes over Kahoot. I will not use Kahoot. Quizzes is you get to do it at your own pace. The questions are in random orders. I think it's a much more applicable resource for learning as opposed to just guessing randomly and trying to win. The last 2 resources are ones that we will not use in class, but they might be helpful to you. Quizlet, you can make flashcards and help study any vocab terms you need to study or anything like that. That will be a resource that you could provide for extra credit, like if you make vocab word lists on that. And then Kami is the last tool. You can use it through your Google Drive, and it allows you to open a PDF and then write on it, type on it, highlight it. Most of the documents I'll give you will be editable through Google Doc or Desmos or something like that. But in the rare occasion that I give you a PDF and you want to just write on that on your laptop or tablet, you can use Kami, which is an app that Southfield already put on your Google Drive. So that's it for our 2 documents. I know that was a lot of information. You could have just read the documents instead, or if you need to go back and learn more, you can do that. I'm going to take you on a tour of the classroom now, which will be quick because I'm not too sure how much more time I have left on my recording. But right here is the front of the room. It is my smartboard. If I take my laptop, you can see the rest of the class. So we look into the courtyard that is right by the main office. If we go around the room, you can see on the back of the wall, I like putting your birthday so that way we can all celebrate each other. As we wrap around, you can see my teacher desk in the corner, a blackboard which we might use for group work if we ever need to. And then here's the front of the room again. Those two closets I like putting class materials in, like rulers and projectors on and all that type of stuff. My room is one of those big rooms which have a lot of engineering materials in it. So I'm also the teacher that works with NSBE, which is our National Society of Black Engineers. So you might be in here for that once we are back in the building. Again, my teacher desk. This is the bookcase where we'll put our textbooks, where I will pass out materials to you. Over here is the front of the room. Here's where I will put stuff for you to pick up and where you return in papers. Here's our monthly calendar, which I'll put birthdays and school events. And then as the last part, I'll take you out to the hall, just so you can see where we are if you're familiar with the building. Here are the library, computer labs. Sorry for the chairs, we are still cleaning the building. And then if we take a walk further down, you can see where my room is. So once we are back in the building, you can know how to get to my room. So here's the main hallway from the U drive and the main office. Here's the B wing, and then there's the hallway over to the A wing. So I will see you soon in Google Meet.